You think silence is weakness. You think pulling back means you've lost. But here's the truth nobody's telling you. The moment you stop chasing is the moment everything shifts. Not because of some trick, not because you're playing games, but because you finally stop betraying yourself. Let me tell you what's really happening right now. You're stuck in a loop. She left, or she's pulling away, or she's giving you breadcrumbs, and you're sitting there wondering what you can say, what you can do, what grand gesture will make her see you differently. You're drafting texts you never send. You're analyzing her social media like it's a forensic case. You're asking your friends what they think, rewinding every conversation, every moment, trying to find the exact second it all went wrong. And every single day you do this, you're moving further away from the man she could actually respect. Here's what I need you to understand. She's not coming back because you convince her. She's not coming back because you finally say the right thing. She's coming back if she comes back because you become someone she can't ignore. And that transformation doesn't start with her. It starts with you walking away from the version of yourself that's on his knees right now. Now, before we go deeper into this, I need you to do something. Hit why chasing kills attraction instantly, that subscribe button. Not for Clear's Throat Me, for you. Because the voice in your head right now is lying to you. It's telling you that effort equals love, that persistence equals devotion, that if you just try harder, she'll finally understand. And you need a counter voice. You need reminders. You need someone who's going to tell you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. So subscribe, turn on notifications, because this is the work. This is the daily reset you're going to need when your emotions try to pull you back into that pit. All right, let's break this down. The thesis is simple, but most men get it backwards. Attraction isn't built by addition. It's built by subtraction. You think you need to add more attention, more gifts, more explanations, more presence. But what actually creates the shift is when you subtract yourself from her world, not as punishment, not as strategy, but as self-respect. Here's the misconception. First, you believe that love means fighting for someone no matter what. You've been told that real men don't give up, that if you really care, you prove it by staying, by showing up, by making it clear she's your priority. And on the surface, that sounds noble. That sounds like integrity. But let me ask you something. Where is your integrity to yourself in that equation? Where is the part where you say, I will not tolerate being treated as optional? Because right now you're teaching her what silence does to her emotions. That your presence has no cost. You're teaching her that no matter how she treats you, you'll be there. And people, men, women, everyone lose respect for what they can take for granted. Here's the hard truth. The version of you that's chasing her right now isn't attractive because it isn't grounded. It's reactive. It's needy. It's coming from a place of scarcity that says, I need you to validate me. I need you to choose me so I can feel whole. And she can feel that. She can sense it in your texts, in your tone, in the way you light up too much when she gives you the smallest bit of attention. And it repels her, not because she's cruel, but because human psychology doesn't work that way. We are wired to move toward strength and away from desperation. We are wired to value what we might lose. Now let's talk about why this happens. Why do you fall into this trap? Because somewhere along the way, you made her the center of your world. You stopped tending to your own purpose. You stopped investing in your own growth, your own friendships, your own goals. She became the sun and you became a planet in orbit. And when that happens, two things occur. First, you lose yourself. You start making decisions based on her mood, her schedule, her approval. You shrink. Second, she loses the man she was originally attracted to because the man she met or the man she fell for had the power of emotional restraint, a life, had direction, had standards. And now you're just waiting for her to text back, waiting for her to change her mind, waiting for permission to feel okay again. And here's what that costs you. It costs you time, weeks, months, sometimes years spent in emotional purgatory, hoping someone will choose you while you refuse to choose yourself. It costs you dignity. Every time you reach out after being ignored, every time you tolerate disrespect because you're afraid of losing her, you chip away at your own self-worth. It costs you opportunity. Because while you're obsessing over someone who isn't showing up for you, there are people, experiences, versions of your future self that you're completely ignoring, and it costs you her. Because the more you chase, the more you confirm that you're not the man she needs you to be. So let's reframe this. Pulling back isn't about manipulation. It's not about making her jealous or punishing her or playing some calculated game. It's about reclaiming your frame. It's about stepping back into your own center and saying, I am not defined by whether or not this person validates me. That's the shift. That's the move that changes everything. Let me paint you a picture. The man who gets her attention back, if that's even what he wants anymore, is why she notices you when you stop reacting, not the man who's blowing up her phone. He's the man who went silent because he had to, not out of spite, but out of necessity. He realized he was abandoning himself and he made a decision. He redirected all that energy he was pouring into her and he poured it into himself. He started training harder. He started building something. He reconnected with his purpose, his friends, his vision for his life. And he did it without performing for her, without posting thirst traps or subliminal messages. He just moved forward. This man doesn't check her stories. He doesn't ask mutual friends how she's doing. He doesn't construct elaborate scenarios in his head about what she's thinking. He accepts the reality she's not here. And instead of collapsing into that, he uses it as fuel. He becomes sharper, more disciplined, more present in his own life. And something interesting starts to happen. He stops caring as much, not because he's bitter, but because he's filling his life with things that actually matter. And when you stop caring as much, when you stop leaking energy into someone who isn't reciprocating, you become magnetic again. Here's why. Presence. Real presence. Not the kind where you're physically there, but emotionally desperate. The kind where you're grounded in yourself, where your mood isn't dictated by her response time, where you have standards and you enforce them quietly. That presence is rare. Most people are either chasing or detachment versus indifference explained running. Most people are in their heads, anxious, trying to control outcomes. But when you root yourself in your own reality, when you stop negotiating your worth, people feel it. She feels it. And then there's the contrast. She's used to you being available, predictable, safe, but now you're not. Now there's space. Now there's silence. And that silence does something to her psychology. It makes her wonder. It makes her question, why isn't he reaching out? What's he doing? Did I misjudge him? Did I lose something real? And that's not you. Manipulating her. That's just human nature. We don't miss what's always there. We miss what's gone. But here's the critical part. This only works if it's real. If you're pulling back as a tactic, she'll sense it. If you're performing self-respect while secretly obsessing, it won't land. The shift has to be internal. You have to genuinely let go of the outcome. You have to reach a place where you're okay if she never comes back, because that's when you've actually reclaimed yourself. That's when you're no longer negotiating from a place of fear. So what do you actually do first? You stop initiating completely. No texts, no calls, no just checking in. No likes, no comments, no reactions. You go dark, not to hurt her, but to create space for yourself to think clearly. Because right now your emotions are running the show and you, the moment regret starts forming, can't trust them. You need distance. Second, you redirect your energy. Every time you feel the urge to reach out, you do something else. You train, you work on your business. You read, you create, you call a friend, you do anything that reinforces your own value. Because this isn't about distracting yourself. It's about rebuilding the foundation that you let crumble when you made her your everything. Third, you enforce boundaries. If she reaches out, you don't jump. You respond when you're ready, not when you're anxious. And if she's breadcrumbing, if she's being vague or inconsistent, you don't tolerate it. You make it clear through your actions, not your words, that you're only available for real connection. Anything less, you're not interested. Fourth, you stop explaining yourself. Stop trying to make her understand why you're hurt or why she was wrong. Stop seeking closure. Stop waiting for the conversation that's going to make it all make sense. It's not coming. Closure is something you give yourself by accepting reality and moving on. Fifth, you reclaim your identity. Who were you before her? What did you care about? What were you building? Go back to that, not to the exact place, but to that energy, to that version of you who had vision, who had hunger, who wasn't sitting around waiting for someone else to determine his worth. And sixth, you get why self-respect is magnetic, comfortable with the idea that she might not come back. In fact, you get comfortable with the idea that you might not even want her to, because the goal here isn't to win her back. The goal is to win yourself back. And if in that process she realizes what she lost and she comes back different, better, ready to actually show up, then maybe you consider it. But you're not doing this for that outcome. You're doing this because you refuse to be a man who abandoned himself for someone who didn't choose him. Let me tell you what happens when you do this. At first, it's hard. Your brain is going to fight you. You're going to have moments where you almost break, where you almost text her, where you almost check her profile. You're going to feel like you're losing her all over again. But push through that, because on the other side of that discomfort is clarity. And clarity is power. You start to see things differently. You start to see how much of your energy was wasted. You start to see patterns you ignored. You start to see that maybe she wasn't the person you built her up to be. Maybe you were in love with potential, with the idea of her, not the reality. And that realization is freeing. You start to feel different too, lighter, stronger, more grounded. You stop waking up with that knot in your stomach. You stop performing your life for an audience of one. You start living for yourself again, and people notice. Your friends notice. Your coworkers notice. Other women notice, because you're not leaking. When she begins to miss you desperation anymore, you're contained. You're focused. You're moving forward. And then sometimes she reaches out. Maybe it's a casual text. Maybe it's a question. Maybe it's something deeper. And when she does, you're different. You're not the guy who was waiting by the phone. You're not the guy who's going to drop everything to prove you still care. You're the guy who's been building something. And that shift in your energy, that's what makes her pause. That's what makes her reconsider, because now she's wondering if she gave up too soon. Now she's wondering if maybe you were the one and she just couldn't see it because you were too available. But here's the thing. By the time she reaches out, you might not care the same way. You might respond, sure, but you're not desperate for it anymore. You're not defining your worth by whether or not she comes back. And that's the ultimate win, because you've reclaimed the most important thing, your self-respect. This is what it means to be the answer. You stop looking outside yourself for validation. You stop waiting for someone to choose you. You choose yourself every single day in every decision. You set the standard. You enforce the boundary. You walk away from what doesn't honor you, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. And when you do that, you become the kind of man who doesn't need her to come back. Become the man she feels losing. You become the kind of man who's okay either way. And ironically, that's exactly the kind of man she can't ignore. So here's what I want you to do right now. Decide. Are you going to keep chasing someone who's not chasing you back? Are you going to keep betraying yourself for the hope of being chosen? Or are you going to take your power back? Are you going to become the man who doesn't need to beg because he's too busy building? That decision is yours. But I'm telling you right now, if you make the second choice, everything changes. Maybe she comes back, maybe she doesn't. But either way, you win, because you get yourself back. And that's the only thing that ever really mattered. If this hit you, if you needed to hear this, subscribe, because this is the work. This is the daily recalibration. This is the voice that's going to remind you who you are when the world tries to tell you you're not enough. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and commit to the process. This is your community. These are your brothers, and we're all getting better together. Now go do the work.